So did people see this? I had just found this. It came out the end of last month. Russia declassified, their classified documents on Kennedy. Yeah, the bridge was dubbed the Kennedy-Khrushchev World Peace Bridge. Khrushchev was the leader of the Soviet Union, who we were in a Cold War with at the time. So they were an enemy. I mean, we're not in a, like, this would be fine if they did it today, because we're not in the Cold War with them anymore. But see, there's a reason, like, we had nukes, like in Turkey. It was this, if you annihilate us, we annihilate you thing. That's always been the thing that's actually got peace, really. It has, because it's known absolute, utter destruction for everyone if a nuke goes, flying. So even though, Kennedy took us into almost World War III, because everything he did was to hurt America. But it was worse than that. He was hurting the allies of ours while he was making back channels. Like, he had a back channel with Khrushchev. Okay, so like that would be, having that today is one thing, because we're not in a Cold War with Russia, even though, forever we've always been, like this, I don't know, like neither side trusts each other. It's the what Reagan would say, trust but verify kind of thing. But see, Kennedy had a secret back channel with Khrushchev, to where only those two would know. And then when it came out later, it's like, well, this is so we can bypass any, difficulties. This was during a time when we were in a Cold War with Russia, okay? So he came into office, he deliberately messed up the Bay of Pigs, okay? Because again, he said to do it and then didn't give air support. I read that in the JFK files. I'm like, who would be that stupid? No, this was deliberate. It was, in my opinion, it was deliberate so he could have a reason to attack the CIA. Because if you're an enemy, and they were enemies, to the country you're leading, the very people that you're going to be wanting to go after first is the intelligence agencies, because they're going to figure you out before anybody else does, and be like giving you the side eye, like, what are you doing? And this isn't about, just policy dispute. No. This is where somebody is looking at you saying, wait a minute, you've taken us into the Cuban Missile Crisis all because you didn't follow what Eisenhower said and give air support for the Bay of Pigs. You've now taken us because that caused Russia to roll their nukes into Cuba and point them at us. And that would have never happened had Kennedy given the air support for the Bay of Pigs. So he did it purposely. Because there's no way he's that stupid. He was doing it because he was not a friend to America. See, it goes back to the World War II, because Joe Kennedy and the boys were that way. I mean, you have to remember, just a few years ago, JFK's journal was auctioned, like his personal journal, where he wrote that, Hitler was what legends were made of. Joe Kennedy couldn't run for president because of how hateful he was towards Jews. Like, it was bad. And it was really him controlling everything with his boy, JFK. Plus, they were all tied to Sam Giancana and the Chicago mob. So, I mean, all the red flags there for anybody, just normal person, like, what are you doing? How could you fuck up this much? Then you have this back channel with somebody, we're in a country, major big country, that can annihilate us. Like, this for so long was the biggest country that we didn't just go trusting, and yet he did, and he had a back channel with them. Somebody was looking out for America's interests. They were. Russia had no reason, or Soviet Union then, they had no reason. No reason. Khrushchev cried when Kennedy was killed. I would imagine he would. I mean, he had access to America, totally. And then they tried to make it seem like Kennedy was the hero and got us out of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that even pissed him off because the media played it like that he had given in. No, Kennedy did. Kennedy removed our nukes. We had nuclear weapons at Russia. He removed them from Turkey, and you may think, well, that's a good thing. Turkey wasn't happy. That was a protection for them. Like, he caused so much destruction. So much problems. Not to mention, the big government he was an enemy. And if I can figure that out, I can just imagine what people around him that have America's interests at heart were thinking. I'm not saying intelligence. Who knows? We'll never know. But I think given that what America has been through with the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, I'm not saying they're intelligence. I just think there's people that will never let any enemy, like if they know, because think about it, then RFK 3 years later was assassinated. I think he was probably told, don't do it. Because they knew that family was going to follow whatever Joe Kennedy told them. They knew the Kennedys were enemies. At least that bunch. And I forgot that this happened under JFK. Bastard. Because he got a lot of heat from Americans about this. So this was Soviet after the Holocaust, because of the disaster of that, because it was a war just killing people because they were Jewish and killing them in the most horrific ways. And then all of the allies, which was France, UK, America, and we were allies with Soviet Union during the time of taking Hitler down. We were anyway. And again, this was a war that Joe Kennedy didn't want us to go into. See, the Kennedys, even though they claim they loved America, they supported authoritarianism. They did. So that's the reason they admired Hitler. And they didn't like the Jews, which is why JFK was going after Israel, saying, we want to know about your nukes, we want to know. Yeah, Kennedy's the last person and they wouldn't tell him, and I wouldn't either. But, you know what? These sick people, you're seeing what kind of soul they are right now. Candace Tucker, there's a lot of them. They're showing who they are. I think it's a DNA problem. I really do. I think it's some family line sickness, a soul depravity kind of thing. Like I don't care if you hate Jews, but to just be okay with nobody, like you're a twisted person that should seek help or seek God. If your hate goes as far as to put stuff in comment sections when it's a story about the Holocaust and you're like, this is, you put in the comment section, this is the greatest story ever told. You're a twisted POS. You're seeing many of those POSs on display while they act like that the Jews are the problem, and they're not. But it all goes back to that stuff. So Soviet Union, because a bunch of because they broke after the Holocaust, because they had to denazify people, because the whole population, even people that weren't killing Jews, they had been so brainwashed, like that this was acceptable. Like that's, I mean, so they broke Germany up into 4 sections, and Soviets had a section, America had a section, France and UK had a section. So East Germany was the section that the Soviet Union controlled. Well, they put this wall up only because they were losing too many people coming over to West Germany, and they needed to keep their workers because otherwise, production wouldn't be happening. So they enslaved them with a wall, and Kennedy didn't do anything about it, and he could have.